Hello, awesome people. I hope you're having a great day today. Today we're taking a look at the next short story in this Return to Lankhmar, a collection of it's the third volume, which I'll link to you in the comments below, by Fritz Leiber, that puts together his extensive series of stuff for you folks. It's a 16-page short story called Under the Thumbs of the Gods. So we're going to be doing my review of it, which will begin, will be spoiler for review in case you haven't actually had a chance to read it before or heard of it before. So Fritz Leiber started writing the series in 1939 in the pulp era, and he wrote it extensively, and he'll come back to it again and again and again. He has a lot of short stories, novellas, and there's actually a novel. That's the first half of this in as well. So that's a rewriting of a novella called Scylla's Daughter. So anyway, that's kind of fun. So he's been heavily published. As a reminder, this channel rules named The Worst Thing About New Books is a quote by a French philosopher, Jacques Joubert, who said that the worst thing about them was keeping us from reading the old books. And then a guy who published continuously from the 30s to the 90s when he died in 1992. And also is a big name in science fiction and horror and fantasy fields, and is heavily influential on modern fantasy. You can't read a modern fantasy work without reading his stuff, or like comics, novels, or play like a video game or something like that that's set in a fantasy world, or an RPG, tabletop, or video games and so forth. You just can't do it without getting the influence of his stuff. He's heavily influential. So, but a lot of people just haven't heard of him. He's actually in the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Hall of Fame for you folks. So that's kind of cool. Anyway. So let's start with the short story, Under the Thumbs of the Gods. I read it last night in about 32 minutes, so it took me about 2 minutes a page for me to read it roughly for you folks, since it's 16 pages long. So let's go ahead and do my spoiler-free review of it. So what's happening? You'll find out on the first page that three gods are meeting in God's land to talk about Fafhrd and the Gray Mouser. And what's happening is that they have had a... three gods they have served at one point in time or another, and called homage to. Fafhrd is two of those, and the Gray Mouser is one of those. And so these three gods are meeting together because they're now basically apostates who are no longer part of their religious faith, and they've left behind the gods that they serve. And so these gods are going to set out a revenge against Fafhrd and the Gray Mouser, and it's called. That's where the title Under the Thumbs of the Gods comes from. So they're going to set out on a revenge for these two main heroes. They're thieves in the city of Lankhmar for you folks. And so basically what's going to wind up happening, you're going to find this on the first page, that Fafhrd and the Gray Mouser are talking about their lost loves. And they're talking now about, going out and trying to find some women and so forth. And now they're going to try to go out there and journey out there, try to find some women. And so that's basically... the quest for women, and so forth, and the three gods are in the background directing things. So there you are. That's the first 2 pages, and I'll leave you to it on a 16-page short story for you folks, which you can get caught up to. So what do I actually think about this? While I like the idea of the gods trying to try to put their thumb on it, this really isn't an exacting or an exciting story that really engages you on a fantasy level, right? There aren't a whole lot of combat scenes, right, between these two characters. There aren't. The ending doesn't make sense for what they had built up underneath the gods. The punishment that the gods are described early in the short story just doesn't, and then what winds up happening doesn't wind up. It doesn't suit the story structure and infrastructure that it builds up. So I don't like it that much. So I'm only giving this a 6 out of 10 instead of a higher ranking for those basic reasons. It's not combat. It's not a gripping short story, and it doesn't. But again, it's well written. There's a reason why he's in the Hall of Fame. But it just doesn't grip me. The story isn't the self-contained story just doesn't, although it does refer to a lot of previous lost loves over the course of the story, so it does refer back to it. So you kind of need to have read this series and find out what wound up happening. But yeah, it doesn't read well when you go back and read it, and the ending doesn't make sense when you consider what was supposed to happen. So there you are. I'll go ahead and leave you to it. I'm only giving it a 6 out of 10. Like I said earlier, I talked about how influential this guy was. This series has actually won Hugos. by the way. He's one of the most awarded writers in the of Hugo's out there. So anyway, so I talked about how influential. So let's talk a little bit more about. Do you have thief characters in your games, or the video games that you're playing, or the role-playing games that you're playing? Those thieves have set of skills that are created by in this world. Do you have a thieves guild that you work against? That's also true here in the city of Lankhmar. Do you have a giant city that dominates your playing called Lankhmar, which is a seedy city that has things like the Plaza of Dark Delights and Horror Street, those sorts of things, right? So if that happens too in your fantasy, that's coming from this world, right? So the modern kind of concept of fantasies and so forth. There is an appendix in the first Dungeon Master's Guide for a game called Dungeons and Dragons that came out in the 70s as the first tabletop RPG game. And in it, in Appendix N, he lists, the co-creator, Gary Gygax, lists all of the influences and where he got all of his ideas from. And this is a heavy shout out in the series in particular, and this author, Fritz Leiber. So there you are. I'll go ahead and leave you to it. That is Under the Thumbs of the Gods by Fritz Leiber. So what'd you think about it? Have you read it? If so, what'd you think about it? Did you agree or disagree with my 6 out of 10? Let's talk about it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, why not hit that subscribe button? Because there'll be a lot more of these to follow. And then finally, I just want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and investing in watching my video. We all have so many things that are happening in our lives, and we're pulled in so many different directions. So the fact that you spent this time with me is incredibly humbling, and I appreciate it. So thanks again, and have an amazing day.